Then, of course, the 5 a.m. club. 5 a.m. club, when it started, must confess, so difficult for the first days to wake up at 5 consistently. Consistently. Keyword. There's someone who's actually saying so much about that because there was a day, I won't mention that day, where he never showed up when he was supposed to. Consistently. So, if you wanted to know one of the greatest attributes of greatest achievers, it's really about owning your morning. That's how the 5 a.m. club started and reflections. And now we've opened it up on Friday with the community Fridays where we know individuals, you definitely have great things within you that you want to share. We all have different stories to tell. Mine might be a better story than Agase Kalala here, but who am I? But we all have great stories. And the idea is really come out and share those stories, meet other people, see greatness in themselves. Ubuntu Leadership Safari is really about coming together, work together, build each other. And this is something that transcends any network. So that was number one. And then we now thought about, why is it that after COVID, we are still stuck on social media, having these conversations online and not physical? So we decided, let's try the Ubuntu Talks. Ubuntu Talk. And with the Ubuntu Talks, the first one was, of course, with Stephen Mukasa, who shared with us on finding your true north. Now, I know the conversation around finding your true north is one that we sometimes put aside or push aside, but it's interesting to note that there's some 50-year-olds who still do not have or know their true north. So in that conversation, it was really about probing ourselves. And then in the second one, we said, let us take it a notch higher, building a leader with purpose, but from a perspective of a guy who has seen it in the leadership circles, low circles, and all of that, and that was Daudi Mpanga. And when Daudi Mpanga shared with us, one of the guests decided, not going to stop there, we have to set up a library. That guest is here with us, Barbara Barunji. She offered us our first books. And the books that she offered us were the books that the guest had spoken about. And these are books for us to enjoy and read. Remember, a leader is a reader. A leader is a reader. A leader is not a guy who just listens to gossip. A leader is a reader. And like we've always said, leadership is not just about what we know as leadership, personal leadership. How you run yourself, run your day, run your team, run whatever situation you're in. Leadership. So the library is now available. Our brother Wemby is in charge of that project. And in that library, we have a several or wide variety of books that you can use to support you in your journey for free. Because at the end of the day, it's Ubuntu. We do this for free for ourselves. Now, beyond that, we have decided as well to take on a mentorship program. Because think about it. In what place would you get Aga to come and share with you amazing wisdom? Nothing. Think about it. Because you see, in today's world, knowledge is gold. Knowledge is gold. Being around the right people at the right time, the right networks, that is what will push you further. And again, that's why also you see conversations like this really attract a certain caliber of people who are futuristic, because we had made this a bar situation. Trust me, it would be super flooded. But that is the beauty about ideas and people who love ideas. Ideas are created and run by people in small groups, but the impact is crazy. I think you've heard of the Pareto's principle, where 20% create 80% of the impact. Because trust me, you can have 80% of the people creating only 20% of the impact. And that is where we go into the idea of OQP. Only quality people. You are an average 5 people you hang around. So, hanging around the Ubuntu leadership community, great way to start. Now, I don't want to really talk too much because this is not really. But I also want to say, today I cracked a joke about my private jet not being available to pick up the guys in Arusha. Our brother Emio team and Emmanuel are stuck in Arusha. And unfortunately, they can't be with us, but we're going to call them, dial them in later on. But they can't be with us right now because it's an East African story where it's a bit tricky to fly across these places with our airline. So in future, we shall have Ubuntu Express, and whoever is stuck anywhere will be able to pick you up for the next event. Okay? Yeah. So Ubuntu Express will come in the future. We'll begin with the bus, and we'll go on to the plane. So they're going to join us live, and of course, it's really painful that they can't be with us here, but they're going to be with us. Now, I just wanted to speak about today. You see, over the last 1 year, as we've been doing Ubuntu, we've been asking ourselves this one question: why do we do this? And I like the way Simon Sinek says it. Many companies know what they do. You know what you do, You know that you can go into your office and do this and that, and you make it happen. Many companies or people know what they do. Some companies and some people know how to do it. Okay? They know what they do. Some know how to do it. Very few know why they're doing it. Very few know why they're doing it. So this for us and our why is, can we grow together? There's a very interesting thing in my village where they say, the only guy with a corrugated iron sheet house and everyone is in a hut, they will come for you. You cannot develop alone. So how can we ride on the shoulders of giants like Aga, like Daudi, like Stephen, to give us an idea of what it is on the other side? If you're looking for mentorship, and again, Barbara, congratulations. Barbara was just appointed the first ever. Barbara, I would be wrong to speak for you, but the first ever female board chairperson of a bank in Kenya. Barbara's credentials precede her. Barbara has worked with financial institutions from AFDB to many. She's been around the world. Now, you're sitting in this space with Barbara. She is, if you want to go into that area, a great mentor. We have young people who are all about fintech, who are all about startups, the ecosystem. Aga, that's his area, and he's going to speak more about that. Here with his wife. One of the amazing or best dentists in the country. Asha, if you can stand so we can just see you. Because Aga hasn't come alone. What we want to do is to create a community where you can meet these people, get to know, build on your network. Because you might not need Aga for something, but Aga could know someone who can support you in that area. 6 degrees of separation. Aga could probably know how to get to Obama, and if I want to go to America and meet Obama, he has a friend who knows a friend who knows Obama. And Otoa meets Obama. So it's all about these conversations that we are talking about. So I just want to really introduce our guest here, Aga Sekalala. Aga has been very instrumental in really helping us in our conversations. And I've known Aga for a very long time. Aga, not only has he been my mentor, my personal mentor, but a very good friend. I first met Aga Sekalala in the gym at Kavira, 5 a.m. club. I met this guy who keeps running like he's crazy. In fact, my first question to Aga was, do you run the marathon? I said, no, I don't go for those things. I said, hey, so what are you training for? Dedicated guy who always showed up at the same time, every morning. And his discipline was very infectious. For me, as a young guy, it seemed so weird that a guy who you assume is doing so well is still pushing boundaries. And I think for me, that's something that got me thinking. So Aga Sekalala is a very, very interesting guy, and we'll hear more about him. He's the CEO of a family business that has spanned years. We all know the story around SMEs in Uganda. There's a rumor or an allegation that is made about Uganda being the most entrepreneurial country. And again, forgive my words, rumor and alleged and an allegation, because sometimes it's difficult to understand this. But when you look at the average age of an SME in Uganda, ideally 2 to 3 years. If you went to URSB today and see the numbers of businesses that are being opened up, and you go back same time next year, you'll realize that you hardly have 10% or 5% of them surviving. So a guy who has been through a family business that has gone through the test of times, gone through the different economic shocks, and still stands tall. A story of succession. You know, with us in Uganda, a business kange, when the old man dies, the business dies. I'm glad my brother Okelo is here. I hope he can take that to his son. But Okelo, it's about business succession, which is something that is unusual in our Ugandan context. And if you find out and see most of the businesses that have successions of this kind, most of them are actually Indian-led business. That's the inconvenience. So we want to know more about that. But also, interestingly, is a guy who has defied odds. The chemical engineer. Chemical engineer. How many of you know about chemical engineering? Because I also don't know much about it anyway, so we're all together. But Aga has run business enterprises. He's done so much for himself. So let me just read this, Robertson. Aga is an entrepreneur and has grown his family-owned business group into a multi-billion shillings enterprise. He's the executive director of Ugachik and also sits on the board of KCB Bank. He's the chairman of the board. Ugachik was established in 1992. Now, we were talking with Barbara about millennials, and I reminded her there's also now Gen Z. Gen Z don't know 1992. In fact, these guys only know TikTok. But I hope that, these are things that, when you talk about 1992, there are hardly so many businesses that actually are alive today that speak of that. So he's run that, and he's also the owner of Radio Simba. Many of you love Uganda and know what they call a Buluguma of Uganda, Radio Simba. He has more than 10 businesses under his name and has been part of the commencement of over 16 startups. 16 startups. Now, if a man is throwing money, I don't know Aisha, how you manage that, but if a man is throwing money into startups, they usually say, out of 10 startups, probably 2 will survive. So Aga is a brave man, and Aisha, thanks to you. But Aga is a trained chemical engineer who attained his qualification from the University of New Mexico in the USA, and is also an alumni of the Harvard Business School. He's a proud father of 4 sons, and I think I see one of the sons around. Where is he? Yeah, he's over there. I only know Shafiq very much because Shafiq is the last guy. He's the guy who used to come and build muscle in the gym with Aga. He's right now in the US for university. But Aga, thank you so much, and please come and join me up here. So we're going to do this a little bit different. You see, Aga here is a guy who enjoys Kabozi. So when I told him it's going to be a lecture, I said, lectures are for people who just, cram things. So we're going to take it, we're going to play around with this. And with Aga, we're just going to make it conversational. And the beauty about him is that an orator, a good guy who knows how to speak, not a motivation. He also told me to remind you, he's not a motivational speaker. So Aga, good evening.
Good evening, Tony. How are you? Good evening, everybody.
I know you had a crazy day today. You had board, you had so many things going on. How do you juggle all of these things in a day, man?
Well, you have to plan out your day really well and set out what you need to do, have to prioritize. I think the most important thing is to choose what's important and delegate what you think is secondary, and then decide what you're going to do tomorrow.
Fantastic. Okay, Aga, before we just dive into that, people here must be wondering, who is this? You know, I was sitting up here with a young guy who was a DJ, or he is a DJ, he's called DJ Junior. He used to sneak us into Silk Disco back in the day, and I remember I used to pass you when you were in that booth collecting funds and all of that. Who is Aga Sekalala Junior?
Thank you. I think you said most of it in the beginning. I don't know if I would like to spend much repeating, but like you said, I'm a father of 4 boys. I'm a husband of 1 wife who's right here. I'm a chemical engineer by training, and I'm a businessman. I enjoy entrepreneurial business. I like getting involved in startups, but I also have strong interest in family business. I have been involved in a family business now for 30 years, and I'm mentoring and teaching many others who are following on or who are also involved in family business. But I'm also involved in investing in newer businesses in fintech.
Bitcoin, one of those?
No, I'm not involved in Bitcoin. But I do fund a few ventures, and I feel that it's a way to learn some of the new things that are going on. So I believe that I'm always learning, and what I learned is so far back. I need to learn some more going forward. But it's just the dedication and getting to know what you need to do, and moving forward and learning new skills, acquiring new skills are what keeps driving me.
Okay, you talked about learning more and learning new skills. And a lot of people would say, you know, for an old guy, why are you still learning new skills? You know, I mean, at Ubuntu, we talk about knowledge and wisdom and all these things. And you're talking about learning. Why?
I think the certainty or the constant in life is change. I would say all the time things are changing, businesses are changing, the way business is done is changing. Even the businesses that we do keep on changing. So you need to constantly learn and adapt to the changes that are coming along. And that's what I spend most of my time. If I'm not dealing with issues of management, I'm dealing with issues of seeing which are better run businesses, which have newer technology, what are new methods and new ways of doing work, and new ways of doing even ordinary things is always something that is interesting.
They always say you have to be able to learn how to change the new bulbs, you know. Because, you know, when Madame needs you to change a bulb, you have to know how to do it. You don't call in a fundi to come and do it.
Correct.
But Aga, you talked about business, and a lot of people here, I believe many people here have come to listen to you because of your business expertise, and they really, you know, they've seen you do it all. When we talk about your business and your world in business, where does the inspiration come from? Where do you get that inspiration, or where did you get that inspiration?
I must confess, I think on this one I'm born a bit lucky. I think I grew up in a business family. My father was a teacher initially, and he decided to go into business for himself. My mother was also a teacher, so they were both teachers. But they were risk takers. I think maybe at the fundamental base, they were risk takers, and they were willing to try out their luck in business. And so I was involved from a very early stage, seeing my parents start out in business and trying out buy to sell to trade. And then I also saw, I was also part of, as the businesses were growing and becoming more of processing, investment, building factories, building real estate. I started to learn quite a lot around that. And then I worked in these businesses during the holidays. So as a young man, I spent quite a bit of time within the family establishments. And it is here that I acquired, I think, a passion for doing better. I acquired a passion to be a bit competitive, to want to excel. And I acquired the passion to want to produce the next best product. And so that has become a lifelong goal for me myself. And in spite of spending quite a bit of time in college learning to do engineering, the most important thing was the discipline around that. I always knew that I would get involved in business as long as there was peace and stability here. And the businesses were around, so I came and took them on. And it's been like that since. I never looked back.
You know, you talk about three things in there, three themes that actually show up. You talked about luck. And luck, a lot of people are asking, how lucky can you be, or where does luck come through? But you also talk about discipline. And then, of course, you talk about, research, because, it's really research and development, trying to get the next big product. How does luck, or the intersection between luck and discipline, come through?
Maybe I'd speak about luck a little bit, because I think it's something that is important to highlight, because everybody thinks that luck is winning, is choosing the right lottery ticket. And I think that that's the fallacy. I think that that's not really quite, that might be it in one
So even a football...
the little ticket that you gamble, not that one. That's in its most extreme nature.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that if you are born today, if you were born, say in the early 2000s, you're young, you're maybe 22, 23. We're going to be maybe in 2026 or 27, we're an oil country. You will be born at the right time. You will be, if you have the right skills, you were born at the right time. Me, who was born in the 60s, that's not my time. I will not enjoy those fruits. And that is pure luck. That is not anything that you have done. So are you born at the right time? I was born at a time when I joined the workforce here, and that's what I call luck. I joined the workforce in 89. We had a new country. We had opened up. We were opening up to the world. There was this whole a new dawn had come to Uganda, and so there were foreign investors. They wanted to invest. There was everything was new. You could do anything.
So that was the goal. That was the oil at the time.
That was the oil. The oil was that it had been a dark country, and it was opening up. People sold anything, electrical items, you name it, and they did really well, and they grew, and because the country was on a very fast trajectory of growth. Forget what we're growing now at 6%. We're dealing with growth that was, in the 20s, 30%. And if you're growing at that rate, it means that every other year you should nearly double in size if you're doing what you're supposed to do in business. So that was the right timing from that point of view.
So for the guys who are either not Ugandan or Gen Z guys who were born in the mid-90s, we are talking about when the new government was ushered in. And around that time, so many things were amiss. So we were in a period of recovery, a lot of infrastructure recovery, a lot of, mental recovery. So there were so many things going on. And I think that was a very interesting time as well, because so many things happened at a very fast rate. Raga, let me just go back again to your personality. You have a very interesting personality. We used to bump into each other when you were collecting money from me when I was entering the disco. Tell us about that phase.
Okay, so, again, along the same lines, when starting out, there was an opportunity. The opportunity was we were young, and there was maybe one, maybe two clubs, and there weren't that very many bars. And at that time, everybody used to come to the CBD to have a good time, to party. And so we identified an opportunity. We got together with a number of friends. I think there were about 12 of them. And we invested and built Club Silk. So we didn't invest a huge pot of money. I mean, it was a huge pot of money at that time, if I recall. But everybody put in a small bit. So we built a consortium. And so 2 or 3 things were happening at the same time. The first thing was there was an opportunity. People wanted to go out. People were looking for an alternative place to go. And here we are. We were able to put this place together. It wasn't the perfect place, but it was there. And then we had to just build on it and make it work and make it a fun place that people wanted to come and come back to. So at the point in time, we were looking at that. And the second thing what I was doing, was learning to work with other people. So I was learning how to work with a group of investors. So you learn how to work with different personalities. Some people are very short-term oriented, some are long-term, some are medium-term. All of these are very, very different types of people. Some have fairly short tempers. Some are willing to invest long. Some are... The variations within personalities are huge.
So that speaks really much to group dynamics.
Yes. So I'm speaking to 12 or 13 people and trying to get them to be harmonious to run this one business, which is pretty much like a taxi. Every evening people collect money and then, you have to make sure that you get... So you have to build trust. You have to build... So there's so many things. You've got to be there. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to have consistency. You've got to show up. So this is a business that doesn't allow you to do anything. You can't delegate. This is a cash business. So you have to show up. So at that point in time, there was a lot of learning how to run a business, how to run a cash business. And you grow. You grow just by trying out. And I tell even young people today, start by doing something small. Join some friends, do something whereby you just learn how to transact. Maybe you learn how to sell and, just build, get a track record. And that track record is the one that gets you to the next best deal that's going to come along.
So guys, I think you've had that. At Ubuntu, we've talked about this. Very important for you to think about the people you're getting into relationships with, especially if it's business. I was with some Chinese who say that the best way to know if a guy is worth to be a business partner is you take him out and you get drunk. And he will tell you whether he has bad manners or good manners. I don't want to be like the Chinese. But it's very interesting because,
some people don't drink, though. So you got to remember that.
So you make sure they're high on juice. So, but Aga, talking about that, and you talk about trust. That's a theme that is recurring, not just only in business, but in leadership as well. Trust. I mean, people sometimes do not trust their leaders. Or leaders can't trust the people they are dealing with or, people that they're supposed to lead. How do you build trust in a relationship? How do you build trust that can go over time and, support a relationship?
Tony, I think that there is no shortcut to this. I would say there is no cookie cutter that you can wake up in the morning and have trust on a silver platter. I think trust is earned. I think that is the word that I recall most of the time. It is earned. Now, if you think about something that is earned, it means that you've got to put in something yourself, and you've got to be patient with it. You're not going to get it immediately, but you've got to get started. So sitting at home or staying sheltered somewhere is not going to get you any trust, even if you don't go out there and do anything. So the first thing is you've got to go out there and try and get some traction. You've got to do something.
Talk to people.
You've got to talk to people. You've got to do something. You've got to belong to a community. Even if you work with your community church, even if you work with, I try to get a lot of people to just be with their community church, their mosque, their local organizations. Just participate, do something. If they're doing something, you be active in there. And then what you do is you slowly learn a little bit about group dynamics. But as you learn about group dynamics, because trust is a two-way street. Trust is not only people trusting you, it is also you trusting the other person. So being a two-way street, you've got to go out there and you've got to put some coins on the table.
However little they are.
However little they are, you've got to do something. Put your shirt on the table at least and build some trust. Whatever you have. So if it is trust with an employer, it means you've got to show up to work. You've got to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. If it is with your maybe your supplier, it is if he says that they're going to supply you something. When they do, you make sure that you're good on what you say. So it is slowly you build trust, you build integrity, slowly by slowly. Eventually with time, it is something that you have to earn and just keep on polishing.
Trust. One of the very, very interesting cornerstones of any relationship, trust. And I like the way you've said it, Aga. You have to put something on the table. We come from societies where a lot of people just want to get, but don't want to. And I'm glad you've mentioned that. But Aga, let me just take this a notch higher. You deal with several businesses that are big and huge, man. You have a crazy portfolio. You must have setbacks. I mean, you're human, right? You must have setbacks. How do you deal with these setbacks, or what support system do you have? I mean, I know there are entrepreneurs here who have challenges, but how do you deal with setbacks when they come? I know one of the setbacks or ways of dealing is probably talking to Aisha there, but I mean, how do you deal with setbacks as an individual and as a businessman?
I think, it's a good question, and I think that it is instructional, and it is also very individual, but it is something that is learned. It is not that some people are able to deal with setbacks easier than the others, but it is something that you learn. And also, as you get out there and do things, you're going to have these setbacks. I think at the base of it, at the foundation, to be honest, I have a very, I wouldn't say I'm the most religious person, but I'm a believer in the Almighty God, and so I try to pray as much as I can, 5 times a day, as much as I can. Sometimes I don't make them all, but I believe in that there is a greater power than than myself and people around me, and that there is a God. I also do realize that 1 or 2 or 3 things over the years that I have learned is that sometimes even when there are issues, the first thing you have to do is you've got to face the issues. One of the things that is very common is to run away from the issues, is to hide. Is to get high, right. Is to just
put your head in the sand.
Put your head. Hope that it's going to go away. I think that's a big challenge.
We like to say this shall also pass.
Okay, this shall also pass. But it's also important to realize that sometimes of time, you have to sometimes give some of these problems time. But you have to constantly learn how to decide which ones you've got to go and face and find out. And some of them, because they are setbacks that we have set up for ourselves. Sometimes they are our own failing. It's important to really dig deep, try to understand what's the source of your setback. And setbacks are very common. I think that you will be, the economy currently is very, very difficult with very, very high inflation. It means that, for instance, now businesses and whatever capital you have, if you run a restaurant or if you run, a small store, or you run something, you realize that every time you go back to buy supplies, you can buy less and less and less, and and yet loans and financing is very difficult. So there are challenges, and there are ongoing challenges, and all of us face them, and actually sometimes the bigger you are, the more magnified the challenges.
That's kind of like the more money you make, the more problems. Okay, I remember that song by Biggie. It was a very nice song. Aga, you remind me of the conversation around the circle of influence, or things that you can influence and those that you can't, because we only have limited power. We can only deal with as much. I can't deal with what's happening in Ukraine, for instance, but I can deal with how I manage my resources to be able to take me through that trial period. And I think that is a very interesting one, the way you say or talk about challenges. But it's very important to face them. And I'm glad you talk about that, because a lot of the time we assume that people will help us deal with our problems. And I know it's great to have a great support system, but most problems are best dealt with by ourselves. And the moment you acknowledge that, that's dealt with. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that. But Aga, there is this other bit of spirituality. And I'm glad you really mentioned it. Because you see, with spirituality, we are living in a generation where we are full of AI. It's an AI world. We can predict the weather in the next hour or so. I can tell when it's going to rain using an app or whatever. Why is it important to go back to God or to Allah, for instance?
Again, it's one. I must confess, it's not. It doesn't have a straightforward or easy answer. I can't say that I can give you an answer in one or two sentences. I think it's all about how you are built, how you are raised, where what you've seen growing up. What do you see? What's your background? What's your conceptualization of life and the world? But we grew up in a family that was religious, and by extension, we sort of fraternized more with a lot of other religious family types, I would imagine, and I think that it was fundamental as far as we were concerned, and it becomes something that you take to. I do meet a few people who say they don't believe in God, but I am it tends to be I just wonder what sort of life they live. But I think it's important to understand that there is a higher being, that a lot of things that we see and do can't just happen by pure sheer coincidence or accident. It is also important to make us, I think, humble as people, and to care about other people that we live with, I think.
Oh, fantastic. Guys, this is a very interesting fireside chat, and I guess you're really liking how we're taking this, because we're just like an onion. We're just on the first part. We're peeling on the first part. Trust me, we're going inside where we're going to have tears, but not those sad tears, but happy tears. Aga, the bit of mentorship. Ubuntu is really premised around mentorship, because we're just people who want to learn from one another. We are people that just want to ride on the shoulders of people like yourself, anyone here, Mr. Okello here, anyone. What is mentorship to you, and have you found it valuable? Or who do you see, or who do you use as a mentor? What's your what's your mentorship journey like?
I think mentors have been important in my life. I have been fortunate to work with some great business people, some great business leaders in my journey, and at least I am proud that I've got to learn some good skills. I've also got to learn what I want, or what I want for myself. But also importantly, I've also got to learn what I don't want. Mentorship is not a solution, and I mentor maybe one or two young minds every year or so, and then they sort of plug in, and then at some point in time they plug out. But I'm not going to give you the answers to the question, but I think I can ask the right questions. Is normally my approach to mentorship. Over the years, like I said, I worked with some great minds. Mr. James Mulwana was my boss starting out, and he took me under his wing to teach me. I was a partner with Mr. Gordon Wavamuno when we first started doing the media business. So I worked with him for maybe 5, maybe 7 years. I've worked with my father for many years, and I still learn from him. So I've been lucky that I have had very senior mentors, but I also have friends around me who mentor me on an individual item. So maybe there'll be somebody who knows a lot about maybe transactional law. And so, maybe somebody who knows a lot about governance. And so when you take on a challenging role, you need to understand, for instance, I spent a couple of years, maybe 6 or 7, working on the board of the UMI, the Uganda Export Promotion Board, and the Uganda Investment Authority. And these were very different type of organizations. I had never ever worked in an organization like this before. And so I started to get friends who have worked with governmental type organizations, because these organizations are in between private sector and government. And I had no experience working in an organization like this. So you acquire the right people to sort of guide you to be able to do your best. In that particular case, it was stewardship. Sort of teach you the ins and outs. Teach you, when is it a good time? What are the things? What are the issues? What is right? When is that? So you acquire at each stage. You've got to think and say, who is my teacher on this journey? Who am I walking with on this particular journey? So I think it becomes easier as you get more and more experience, but you don't need to have a very high caliber mentor. I think that is the one that you need to dispel.
So you need to get a normal guy.
Yes, you just need to get somebody who's even 3 steps ahead of you. So if you join an organization, let's say for argument's sake, any company. So you join in at either an intern. All you need to do is to say, who in here is been here and is permanent and has done 5 years in this organization. That person can mentor you on the journey of that organization. They will know the ins and outs. They will know where you go, where you don't go. They will know the things to do, the things not to do. They will know the toes to step on, not to step on. And that's a big deal. That is not small.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I can see your dad plays a very interesting role in your life, especially when it comes to mentorship in the business area. I've just seen some of his books are here. Can I have one of those books, please, if you can just bring me one? And as they bring the book, Aga, I just want to remind you of a very personal interaction we had in the gym. I think this was about 2016, 2017. I wanted to get into business, and I was so desperately bored and tired of the corporate life. I remember speaking to Aga. We were on the treadmill, and I said, Aga, I want to be like you. You recall? I said, I want to be like you. I want to make money. I'm tired of this, on the 30th I get paid and whatever. You recall the statement you made? Or can I remind you?
Remind me.
Until you finally leave that corporate situation, then you'll be ready and you can come and we talk. You recall that? But ever since that time, I remember hounding or trying to be around you, and it challenged me. But that was you saying, it's time to take a risk. And I think you talked about risks earlier, and I really like that. But for many of you who haven't read this book, this is a book by Aga's dad, Double Your Money, reflections on the life of a Ugandan agro-businessman. Very nice read for any one of you who is interested. And maybe
let me also confess. Barbara has donated 5 copies of the book for the library. So wow. The book is available in the library, okay. and I brought it along, and not to be outdone, I matched her. I also put in another 5 books.
So we have 10 books in the library for you guys to really learn how to double your money. These are real stories. And like he said, it's not far-fetched conversations. These are your real people, real lives. And I think, thank you, I mean, Aga, this is very great. And Barbara, Barbara has owned our library. From the first books we got, she has been the person that has donated them selflessly because she's passionate about knowledge, and this is what we're about at Ubuntu. Barbara, thank you so much. So, wow, I actually lost my train of thought, man. It's just amazing. We're getting into this. But Aga, this is quite interesting. Now, let me just go back to something, because I know the audience, I really want to make this very interactive with the audience, asking you and having these questions, or taking a deep dive into your life, Aga. Continuous learning, and I know you talked about that, but also there's the humility aspect and accepting when you don't know. Do you accept that you don't know some things?
I don't know most things. I must admit. I'm very sober about that. I've become very, very clear, and as I grow even older, I realize that I have less and less things that I know, and I immediately hand over my phone to my son.
Yes.
And I say, set that up, make it do what it's supposed to do. So that's where I am. So, right, but right. I'm also privileged and gifted.
Yes.
That I have some young men who live around me who can sort these sorts of things out.
Wow. So guys, I also don't know anyway. So because I don't know, I'm going to let you ask the questions now, so we can actually get interactive with Aga. And after this, I really want us to spend some time with him and, have those one-on-ones. And remember, if you are here and you believe you can provide mentorship to someone, or someone can provide mentorship to you, reach out to us and we'll do the connection. And remember, this is really about you guys forming or forging this great community. For the guys who are new here, who are first-timers, I want to welcome you. This has been happening. This is the 3rd one, and I'm also glad to say Stephen Mukasa is around. He's also, he's the guy who did our first one, and he was very interesting in telling us or talking to us about, finding our true north. So I'll just allow for the microphone to move around if the microphone is available. You have a 3rd microphone there? Okay, if there's no 3rd microphone, we're just going to take 5 questions, and then we'll bring it back to Aga. So, Samuel, if you can come and help me with the microphone, please. Oh, and please, because we are networking, your name and probably if you're okay, that would be great so we can have perspective to the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mulumba, Ivan Matthias, Evaluator, Valuation Surveyor. My question to Sikalala is his personal business, mainly in the line of entertainment, media. What was the conflict going back to the family business? Sorry, extreme. Because I believe sometimes certain life comes with other benefits.
Thank you very much. My name is Jafet Nabikamba. I do sales. My question is regarding family business. How do you move from it simply being looked at as a family business to a corporate organization where everyone respects the structures and they're interested in seeing it live on for generations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sekalala. My question is, at that young stage, I know you're still young, but that lower young age of like 28, 30, did you try to realize? My name is Tamkede Juma, and I'm a lecturer at Makerere University Business School. Yes. My question is, we at that age, we tend to have our personal interests, which are different from family interests, or called the basket that is full at a time in a family. Did you try to find that complex distinction from what interests you, from what you have found in place? And then my other question, as a chemical engineer, we tend to be taken up with the chemistry, with all the profession is a bit at depth, and it tends to take us into passion. We tend to be part of it. So did you find a challenge trying to transfer from that to now the entrepreneurial world? And then did in any way the financial background of your family influence, or could it be a credit to your progress now? Or could you do you buy in this kind of school of thought where a family background can in any way construct someone's future? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. And my ED, Mr. Agasekalala. My name is Vincent Nyanzi. I work with the Sales and Marketing Department for Limited. This question goes right to the boss. My question is, how... Yeah, my question is, how have you managed to balance your personal life with work? Because we're seeing you're providing leadership to a couple of bigger organizations. How have you managed to balance life and work, and also to manage these various responsibilities of organizations? Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Anja Ahmed. I'm a student at Makerere University. My question is, you've grown up in a family with history of business. How does a young gentleman like me, who has no background of business, grow and someday become an entrepreneur like you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Edna Kenom Gasho. I am in beauty and wellness. I own a business. If you've been here long enough, you know that most families that have the background of business have not seen the day of light in this past 10 years. Most people, just like Tony said earlier, when the old man dies or grows old and cannot run the business dies. So what happened different with you that you're able to still carry on the business that would make the rest of us take on, so that we can either carry on the business or teach the young people that look up to us to do the same?
Thank you very much, Tony. My name is Bravo Katunji. I am in the oil and gas space. Oil and gas. So I'm actually also did chemical engineering like you. What I wanted to ask is when you think about business or when we are being taught about business, you're supposed to be shrewd in that space in order to make it. So how does one apply Ubuntu since we are in such a space of looking out for one another in a space where it's supposed to be cutthroat? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, just half more. Good evening, Aga. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm Daniel Chaudhry. I run a sales institute called Daniel Chaudhry Sales Institute. Have you managed to get the best out of your people? You know, those of us who run business, sometimes the people can really frustrate. So from the process of recruitment, have you managed to get the best people on board and keep the best people motivated to ensure that they sustain the growth of, be it Yoga Chick, be it Simba? I'm very curious to know that. That's the half.
Thank you. Those are a really good set of questions. I will try my best to break them down. Bear with me. The first question was from Mulumba. It was around conflicts, media, and the family business. Certainly, the businesses are different. And that's a characteristic of the fact that as a young person, your affinity is to the things which you enjoy and the things that you do. So you will gravitate towards maybe fun things, sporty things, advertising, agency. You're going to be in that direction as opposed to doing staid old agriculture, farming, and that kind of thing. So these two things could be quite diverse. However, the approach that we had within the family was slightly different. That these things could actually one could have a benefit of the other. And so the entertainment initially was to learn, to deal with people, to learn, to get experience. Subsequently, when I went into the media, still on the media up to today. The difference is that I figured that with time, I needed to professionalize the business. I needed to figure out ways and means to make that business work when I'm not there. I've gone maybe 30 or 20 days that I've not been to the station. I do listen in, and I have acquired some unique skills in terms of listening in and knowing exactly what's happening in the studio, because I started it, I built it up, so I know exactly how it works. But I've been able to professionalize the business, standardize the business. The business is a certified business. It runs on standards. There are certain things that we have done, put in place, that I have found to be very useful, that all of a sudden don't require me to be at the business every day. And at this point in time, there is no conflict, because the media business promotes our other businesses. And I have an advantage in that. I did get out of the entertainment business of the dancing and the music and the loudspeakers. Yes, I got out of that business, but it is a choice. You've got to make a strategic choice, and then you keep something and you lose something. True. Without a doubt, we still believe that if there is a good opportunity, actually it should not necessarily be in the, we have what we call the old gen, and then you also have the new generation businesses that should come to support. So if a business can support the old generation businesses, it is a business that is welcome, really, in the group, and we will support that. We will fund that. We will invest in it. And like I said, I invest in businesses of where I don't, where I've just met the entrepreneurs. So sometimes Yes, there could be a conflict and there could be a slightly different way that the business works, but you also have to look at the things that are in common and the benefits of that and then try and take them on. So in our family setting, the media business did not conflict with the agro businesses at all. Japheth asked, how do you change a family business to become a corporate and gain a corporate and to be able to grow? And I think we're talking about a business transcending generations from just being a small family business. And I think this speaks a little bit, and then the question that you're trying to ask is one that says, how do you, you need to grow the business in terms of size, in terms of reach, in terms of depth that the business and the people that the business serves. So there has to be an aspect of size, and that aspect of size calls for professionalizing the business. Because whatever you do, you sooner or later have to bring in professionals to run the business. That's normally one of the key steps that has to happen. However, that is not enough on its own. The business has to be successful in what it does. The business has to have the right strategy. The business has to be good as a business on its own. And then it's the owners of the business to start thinking differently about the business. The thing I keep on telling my friends and I keep on telling people that I speak to is the business can't be a piggy bank. The business can't be a place where everybody goes and gets a little bit of money. Business has to be sacred in itself. Actually, the business should be a place that people take money out of their pocket and put in the business. They invest in the business. They want the business to grow because the business most likely will give a better return on money than if you put the money elsewhere. That's what you need to aim at. But if a business is a lifestyle business, maybe something set up because somebody doesn't have anything to do, and it was set up as a small, something, it's a lifestyle, so it's just there, then certainly it's very, very difficult to convert. It's very difficult to convert from being a lifestyle where, it's a fun thing. I have a friend of mine, he's got maybe 5 or 6 vehicles and people rent them. He likes the vehicles, they park in his yard, and then, sometimes he gives them out to a wedding. That becomes very much a lifestyle. He wants to have the cars, he wants to have them, he rents them out. He's not thinking that he wants to become a Hertz rent-a-car. He wants to gets many cars and rent them out. He doesn't want to rent out motorcycles. No, he's just thinking, no, I want to have my 6 cars, I rent them out for weddings. I don't want any more headache than that. That business is not going to become a big and corporate business. So you have to understand there is also the objectives and the desires of the founders of the business. That's also important. But I think that the family needs to sit down and say, can this business get legs? Can this business grow? Can this business become something? If the answer is yes to all the questions, then it is time to start to think about transforming the business, making it into something different. Juma asked, at a young age, my interests were very different. So Juma was he was the one who teaches. Yeah, okay. He was a teacher. I hope I've not made you a professor when you're not. So Juma was asking, at a young age, are your interests the same as that of the family? Now, sometimes they're not. Interestingly enough, when I was younger, my interest was I had spent a bit of time around the business, so my interest was not in having an interest or in playing badminton or in playing tennis or that sort of thing. My interest was in making money. My interest was in living a good life. My interest was in being independent. I didn't want to work for somebody. That was my main interest at the base. So I wasn't interested in being an employee. Even though it was fun, I wasn't interested in that. So I was very keen to not get into that realm. That was one thing that I was very determined about. So I knew very clearly I wasn't going to become a teacher. I knew that wasn't me. I didn't have, I wasn't made up that way to become a teacher, for instance. And I'm just saying teacher to speak to you specifically. So I knew I wasn't going to do that. But I knew I wanted to live and I wanted to be independent. I knew I had the skills in me, but I knew I needed to sharpen them. I needed to grow them. I needed to fine-tune those instincts and the learning. So I took myself on a journey to learn about business, to learn about accounting, to learn about finance, to learn about human resource, to learn about all these things before I transformed from somebody who studied chemical engineering. The good thing with studying chemical engineering, and I don't know if my friend will attest with me, is that you learn to read a lot. You need to read quite a large amount of stuff, and the stuff is not simple. It's very complicated. So when you learn to read at that level, reading accounts is very easy. Reading everything else is actually very easy. So when I read through, I find a lot of disciplines very, very easy to read. So I never had a challenge. So it was easier for me to learn because I had learned at a very, very complex level. That's the way I saw it. So, I would imagine people who've done, biochemistry, anatomy, all of these things, yes, they're quite complicated. But I had learned how to do engineering, knew how to do the maths, I knew how to do project management. I knew the things that I knew how to do. And so since then, those skills I have just taken on and amplified. And then I've also learned the skills that I'm not very good at. So the things that I'm not very good at, for instance, I'm not a very good salesman. I don't really like to go out there and sell on a day-to-day. So what I do, my partners have to be good salesmen. The people I go into business with are good salespeople. They are good at sales. That's the person that I partner with. And I'm looking for a partner. That's the person that I will. So when we set up a business, they will do the sales side of things, and I will do the project side of things. So that's really the things that I learned as I went along. I learned who I was. I learned what I could do, and that's how I approach. And so I think maybe I've talked a little bit about the transition for chemical engineering to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, I think, largely is motivated by growing up in an entrepreneurial family. That I did not see it as an impossibility. I have a lot of people that I speak to, and I hope that. When I was growing up, that there were people that I went to school with who felt or who thought that their parents had taught them that being a businessman is sinful. And somebody talked about it at the end. He said, you have to be shrewd. I think that this is not true. And it's very important that you do not, at least you might be inculcated that way. You might learn it that way. Just make sure that your children don't learn it that way. Because it might be too late for the people in this room. I don't know all your ages, but my thinking, don't at least, there is no profession that is glamorous except singing and acting, but business is not sinful. You can be a businessman, or you can be a trader, or you can be a finance person without necessarily being evil. And that's very important. But when we were growing up, and to the people in our age group, I won't point out anybody, but it was a very common theme that that is not a place to be. They looked down on it. It was doing business is a thing for low class, low level people who are uneducated are the ones who do business. And I think it was further accentuated by the Idi Amin time for us who grew up in the 70s, because it even got bad connotations. Mafuta mingi, wa magendo. There were so many words that were used to connote business. But to you and your generation, you need to grow up knowing that it is a decent profession. People can actually do business and be fair, And they don't need to, everybody doesn't need to be shrewd. So I think I've spoken a bit about the family background because I think that that's another question Juma asked. I've spoken to it. I don't know if it's there. Mr. Nyanzi asked, how do I balance my time? Mr. Nyanzi is the one who is my salesman. So he's my employee. So, so he's the one who people said was stealing your time. But I think he asked a good question. How do you balance family and work? I think a few simple things that you do. One, I try not to take my work home at all. So if I have work to do, if I have work that overspills, I will do the work. I'll wake up in the morning very early at about 3 o'clock. I go to the gym at 5:30 after prayers, but I wake up very early to do my work. So it's away from I don't work when my family is around. So I go home and I interact with the family. So once I go home, I don't take any work home. I don't mix home but of course, coming from a business family, so we talk a lot about business around the table. So, but it is not business as in trying to solve a problem. Business as in instructive. We're discussing a matter. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why are bond rates trying to go up, but they're not going high enough? We're discussing things like that in our household. It's very common. So balancing the number of enterprises, largely around building a culture of delegation. So that's very important. Everything that I do, I ask myself a couple of questions. Every activity I do, ask myself, should I be doing this? Should I be delegating this? And if I'm supposed to delegate this, who should I delegate this? If I don't have a person that I can delegate to, I need to find that person. So that's really one of the rules. So I try to delegate as much as possible. Yes, do I have a mountain of work? Yes. Do I have a lot of work that is maybe not fully done at the end of the day? Correct. Yes, I'm like every other human being. Sometimes it's not all perfect, but you have to keep on trying to make sure that what is important is done, so you do not actually drown. I think that's the right word, because that's what tends to happen if you don't take on all these tasks and you drown. You can even drown with your one job. You can even drown with your one business. You can even drown with your voluntary work, whether you're in a church and you drown in it if you fail to manage yourself. So drowning is what you're trying not to do. You have to stay swimming all the time. So you look, see, what do I need to do? This is important, this is important, this is important. The key things that have to be done have to be done. So maintain a time clock, understand what your deadlines are, understand what you need to do, and try and make good on your commitments. So I will not do very many of these or if I'm not really sure who I'm speaking to, but Tony is a good friend of mine and he told me this is a brilliant crowd, so I'll make the time to come. Good question around I am fortunate. I am in business. I grew up in a family business. And how about if you don't have the same? And I think that it's a perfect question. I think a lot of people ask this question. First and foremost, it's in your mind. You need to make sure that you're very clear. You feel that it is something you want to try. The first thing you have to think about is, can you find a place where you can, first of all, learn the basics? And the most ideal place for this, unfortunately, strange as it may sound, is school. So you go to school. We already even have a representative here. You go to school, you learn the basics of business. You learn, about a profit and loss. You learn about the things that you would ideally be acquiring while you're at home. You learn them in a formal class. They might not be as magnetic, or they might not be as, that you've learned them from a very early age, but the first thing you do is you go and you acquire those skills somewhere. So school, and sometimes a lot of people are not fortunate enough to be able to go to a business school or to go to to a UMI, take a class in entrepreneurship. These classes, when I look at them, they're 900,000, 500,000, 700,000, depending on there are many places that you can go to. So you learn the basic language. You learn the basic. You have the first step. I want to be in business. I didn't grow up in a business family. Go out and acquire. The second thing that you need to do is to say, can I come to a place like this, which is already you have done? Can I join? Can I see the people who I think know something about business? Can I learn from them? Learn from them at a distance. Now you guys are so fortunate. You live in a very fortunate time. You can learn a lot on YouTube, but do not take everything on YouTube to heart. There's some things you shouldn't. I beg that you do not. Don't become obsessed with it. You also have to understand that there is a practical side of things. So you can also learn by doing a little bit of that. But the problem with you don't want to become overlearned. Also, you want to learn and also practice. Learn and practice. So the next thing would be to join an organization like this gentleman's, whereby he's got a sales team. Go out there and sell like the gentleman that I've just spoke to. Learn about products. Learn about, am I selling that? Does this one work? Can I sell more units of this, more units of that? The biggest challenge with what I'm trying to explain to you is it takes time. It does take time. But most people, that's the case. That's what's going to happen. Even in a family setting, it is easily 8, 7, 6, 10 years before you're really given real mantles of things to be able to make a big difference. So it takes time before you have the reins. So you have to use that time. Then the next thing could be to work with an entrepreneur. Learn. Work with them. Be a personal assistant. Be a person who listens and learns, works with somebody. Work in an organization where there is an entrepreneur and they're doing entrepreneurial things. Learn, listen. And then after a while, once you've acquired enough skill, then that's the time to say, let me start my kiosk. Let me start my first business. Let me try out. And there is no magic. There is no set time. There is no, I promise you not, there is, it could be 1 year, it could be 5, it could be 3. Think about it. How long does it take to go to school? It takes a bit of time. And how long does it take for you to really acquire? And the other thing is, and I think that this is also important, not everybody is really made up for business. Some people are very good salespeople. Some people are very good executives. Some people are C-suites guys. They're the guys who wear those suits and they look really good in them. The suit guys. They're the suit guys, So not everybody is going to business. The question you're going to ask me, the next question, is how do I know if I am made for this or made for the other? And one of the ways is to try out a bit, to see, read a little bit, understand yourself. Another thing is there's a lot of, there's even at a basic level, there's a lot of coaches, people you can speak to. In a very short period of time, you can get very quickly assessed. There is also quite a bit now. There is psychometric tests. They also work well. You can sort of figure out what kind of person you are. These psychometric tests are, sometimes I've tried a couple and they're not bad. They sort of really, they can place you, sometimes, Barbara, am I right? A blue person, a yellow person, a green person. Yeah. So you can quickly figure out which kind of person you are. Yeah. And these things are there. They're not, you can do a psychometric test for, I don't know, maybe $30 or something like that online. So, and actually there are people, who do these things and they will even take you through for learning purposes. So learn yourself, who you are. Who are you as a person? And understand, are you going to be able to run the marathon? Because this is a very, very, very stressful life. It's not easy, it's tough. Every day you're bombarded with a new problem. There was some questions around.
There was one from Edna.
Out of, I've sort of jumped. I've gone to the top of my. I'll come back to you. Don't worry, I've not missed. How do you get the best out of everybody? How do you get the best out of your people? I think that's a good question. You have to build trust with your people. You have to train your people. You have no choice. You have to invest in them. I have trained, the people that I leave my business to are trained. They've been all over the world. They have the equivalent of an MBA multiplied by 2 or 3. They are well trained. They are very capable. They are very confident, and they have the confidence, and they have that drive to be able to run the business. You also have to be personable. It doesn't help if you are an abrasive person. That's kind of difficult. And you also have to be reliable, trustworthy, and you have to have integrity in relationships. So basically, if you hire someone, or if you set out with a person and you're on a journey, and you say when we grow to a certain size, there will be certain benefits, it's important that you keep your word. I think that it's very important that you keep your word. Human beings really pick up on these signals, and they pick up on what I'll call betrayal, or really a lack of genuineness. So I started my business and I had competitors. So I have competitors next door, and I see the challenges they have, but I know the source of the problems. Maybe they've not really been good to their word. They have not really done the things they said they would do. They've not, and clearly you can see that their teams are not going to last. Their teams don't stay there. Other teams are not dedicated, because it's a shifting loyalty. And that's one of the problems that's very common in corporate, what we call a corporate setting. And so that's the difference between a family setting and a corporate setting. A corporate setting is very dependent on who's at the head. If the new person comes in, they have their own politics, they have their own line. Everything is dependent. It moves like that. So certainly, as a person working and building teams, it's very important that you build legitimacy within your teams. You also have to show leadership of your own. You also have to be able, like I said, put your coins on the table. You can't expect your people to do things which you can't do. Yeah? So I have a phobia for selling. I have a real phobia. I don't like selling. I hate going and begging people. It is got an aspect of begging. But okay, you're selling. I call it, and that's extreme. But I still take my team out. I still say, let's go on a sales. Let's go meet a customer. And I sit there and I will show leadership. Even though, and I know they can see that, this is not something I enjoy doing. I make time to do it. And that gives them the confidence to know that I have delegated and given them all the authority to do it. I hope I've touched on a few things. All right, good. I'm glad. Somebody in oil and gas, I've talked a little bit about the shrewdness. I think maybe I've touched on it. I think there is a lot of stuff out there. There's a bit of glamour around, being Trumpish. I hope that you don't acquire. If you want to do business, you don't want to be Trumpish. You don't want to be like Donald Trump. Try try and be a good person. There are certain businesses that are for you, and there are certain things that you will do. You can't be, I'm not saying you're going to be a pushover, but I'm also saying that it is important that you know what you stand for and you know what is yours. So you have to be able to, business is not about being kind, but it is also not about being harsh and mean and thieving and conniving. No, that's not what it is. And very quickly you realize that you will find that Tony will not invite a conniving business person to here to speak to you.
Thank you.
And it is not for lack of them. We know them, they're our friends, we hang out with them, we do business with them a little bit, we do a little bit of things, but clearly you know that this person is toxic, this person has not got traction, this person is unreliable, but that's life. So life is like that. Lastly, Edna. 10 years. Business in 10 years. What do you do? What do you do to ensure that a business is going to be around? I think one, there are many things that have to happen, and to be honest, there is no straight answer, and there is not one single answer. It's important that the people either that are coming in the business have the skills to run the business. It's also important that the environment and the context within which the business is working is favorable in a bit. It's also important that the strategy of the business is shifting in the right direction to be able to match the conditions. So if times are getting tough in one direction, are you moving? Are you shifting to be able to survive? Survival is very important. And unfortunately, people undermine the value of survival. But survival is one principal thing. Just to survive 3 years, just to survive, you got out of school and you've been able to go into some corporate environment and stay there for 3 years. That's a big thing. And we celebrate that very little because we take it for granted. You already have it. It's in your back pocket. But survival is all important. Why have I been able to get this far? Even if it is a short distance. And based on that, what are my learnings? And unfortunately, we tend to throw away what we have learned. And so, families and businesses, important. If your business is able to transcend being a lifestyle business or a business that was set up for convenience, a business that was set up for somebody to have something to do, because a lot of businesses are set up like that. Once you get past that level, it's important that structures are set up. Businesses need to operate on structure and a little bit of structure, but not too much structure. You have to be a bit entrepreneurial, but you have to have some form of structure that guides the way the business operates. So even when you're hit with turbulence, you have a structure. You also have to have good relations. You have to have, good. You have to have good relations with your bankers, your financiers, your suppliers. So when times are good, treat them well. Treat those people, all that you depend on, well, because when times are tough, you're able to sit with them and say, look, guys, I treat you well when times are tough. When times are good, well, I helped you also. I helped you also grow. So now maybe it's time that we talk. It is things like that. You have to build the relations. So you have to have both. You have to have both the soft and the hard skills. You have to be able to pull and push. You've got to be able to think long term. But there is, like I said in the beginning, there's a big aspect of are you able to shift with the wind? Sometimes even the best of businesses will get hit by a real hard wind and they will not come back up. So don't despair. I see businesses globally, and I tell people say, oh, businesses don't survive, but it's the same thing. You look globally, you read every single day a business that's big, billion-dollar business, you wake up in the morning and it's not there. And it's not there. It's a business that's been there for 120 years, like Bear Stearns. It's been there for many years. They wake up in the morning and they're gone. They're not there. It's not because that they didn't have systems. It's not. That's been the there are lessons to learn, but keep on learning, keep on growing with them and adjusting. And so I think that there is a lot of potential, and I keep saying that the potential is quite huge, and I think that there is a lot of opportunities, especially where we're going. If all things remain equal, that young people will have a lot of opportunities as Ugandans in this country if we continue, work hard, learn, get the right skills, and are keen to do business the right way.
Wow. Yo, that's like, wow. That's like a mini MBA, man, or an MBA I got, man. I mean, I just wish I had the recorder on because I need to write my own book using that stuff. It's not plagiarism, is it? But it's amazing stuff, Aga. I mean, wow. I mean, think about it. Do not drown. Yeah, some of us are volunteers in churches, man. You were talking badly, but we also sometimes drown. Some Sundays you wake up and you're not okay, and you have to drown. But I mean, this is really interesting, Aga. And again, it's interesting that you talk about systems. Systems. But it was interesting when you talked about systems and listening into your radio. And you said you haven't been there in weeks, and you listen in and you can know what's happening. It also reminded me of a very interesting podcast that I've been listening to on Apple Podcasts about real dictators, where this is just sidetracking. Robert Mugabe, during the time when they had the riots before him getting off power, there's this radio presenter who decides to open up the channels to people to call in and, it's happening over here. And, and she was giving them a massive platform. And guess who was listening? Robert Mugabe. The next day, he said, hey, fire that person. And that person was fired. But I'm not saying you are using the Robert Mugabe theory. I'm just saying I know of another guy who listens to his radio stations, or who used to. But Aga, it's also very interesting. Business has to be good on its own. It's just anything. A lot of the time people say you are as good as the product that you sell. And for any business, a business is as good as what it says it is. Because you can be a business and talk all of these great things, but in the real market, you're actually, flaky and you do not survive. So it's important and interesting that you talk about that. But self-awareness. Sometimes we have this whole grandeur thing of arrived. We call it arrivism. So you see, in arrivism, I have a friend here called Trevor who loves to tell me Tolina Chongamba. He's right in this sense of arrivism, but it's a joke that we normally use because I always said, do you know who I am? But the truth is, self-awareness is one of the most critical cornerstones for any human being. And it's interesting that over the last 5-10 years, people have been speaking much about it in collaboration with mental health and all of these things. But self-awareness and the power of self-awareness, I'm glad you alluded to that. So when you talk about the personality test, I also did mine. And in mine, I was 96% yellow. I had 60-something red and 60-something green and 22% blue. That is why whenever I'm dealing with people, I get a lot of people who are very critical, analytical, meticulous, because we are the kind of guys who come up with crazy ideas, but we don't like executing. So we have to have people to support us execute. So it's very interesting that you talk about that. And again, I would encourage many of you to do some of these tests. They're really, they're online. You can look out for Clarity 4D. It's one of the ones that I took. And it's very interesting because I remember when we were at this CEO training in Cape Town, for the first day before they gave us the results, they let us sit the way we wanted to sit. Typical of we C's, we sit at the back, where the guys who are heckling, the guys who are loud, and whenever they crack a joke, where the guys who call out names, And when they gave us our results, two people and myself were the yellows, and we were at the back sitting together. And the reds, who were the serious, crazy guys were in the front, and the blues who were positioning themselves in strategic places where, it was quite interesting. And then you have, of course, the greens who are very, how is home? How is your mother? Your kind of, your HR people, yeah? So it was quite interesting. And if you looked at that, the real dynamic here, when you talk about that. So self-awareness, very, very key. But I just want to end by talking about my interesting, story. But before I talk about that, I was really amazed at the conversations you have on the dinner table about bonds, derivatives, and stocks. Man, I just want to have that conversation too. But anyway, I guess it will come. So I just wanted to probably end with a simple story about myself when I returned from the UK. Just like you, I said I wasn't going to work for anyone. My small savings, I went to Hira, got guys to clear up some 10 acres of land, and I planted some maize because for me, we were going to make a killing. The rains had shown that they were coming. Oh boy, it rained. It rained that when it came to time for harvesting, it was still raining. All of my savings, they were rained on. I had to look for employment. So that explains why I had to go back into employment. But I think it's a very... when you talk about the C-suite. Okay. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into the last round of questions and answers, and then after that we'll close. So questions and answers, and then we're going to have someone interesting give us a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamakone Stella. I'm a marketer. My question to you, sir, is what kind of advice or say would you tell someone who has a family business to make their kids interested in it? Because many businesses, we have started by saying, whenever the owner dies, the business dies with him. So what has made you, Gashik, last for this long, and what was that your parents told you that someone can tell their kids to get interested in the business? Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Package Brenda, barrister, sales, farmer on the job, learning on the job. Thank you, Ms. Sekalala. At one point, did you ever feel a burnout? And then how did you go about it?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saleh Chiwika. I have a few questions, two actually. One, what do you look for, or what aspects do you look for when you're investing in a startup? And then two, what skill do you think is important for someone to have to survive either in a business world or the employment world? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Jita Mwesigwa Alexander, and I work as an operations manager at Site Farm Namulonge. So my question goes out to Mr. Sekalala. How have you been able to ensure sustainability and growth of such a generational farm from 1992, as you've mentioned? How have you been able to handle the challenges that come up with farming? We know that there is a big challenge of accessing affordable financing for farmers. So how were you able to scale up and do farming at a larger scale? Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Aisha, and my question is to you, Mr. Sekalala. In this Insta world, the young people having this sense of instant gratification and expecting businesses to turn around overnight and maybe being disappointed when they don't. What advice do you have for young people as they're starting out in terms of building patience and understanding that some of these things take time, what are the little pointers that you can give to the young generation?
Good evening. My name is Leonard Owora. I work with an oil and gas and also do SMEs. My question is, Mr. Aga. We talked about businesses not seeing their first year or their first birthday. Is there a point in time when you felt a business outgrew you, one of your businesses outgrowing you, the owner? Then the other question is, you talked of one of your first startup businesses. You started the businesses as a group. At some point, I believe priorities of the individuals changed. How did you deal with that? Thank you.
My bad. Tony Atida is my name. With that milestone. Tony Atida. Yeah, my question kind of leans into what did you. Over the years, you have businesses which have survived, like Radio Simba, and there are those that have closed. Can you help us dive in deeper on what forms future of a business, especially in times of work? Why did businesses like still close yet Simba is still? And two, can you give us more info on the structures? You mentioned the structures in a general. What are the key things that we can look out for as startups that we can put in our structures, make sure that the businesses can stand the test?
Barbara Barungi. Aga, I just want to know, do family businesses have advisory boards? You'll notice that during the pandemic, there was increased focus on family businesses and valuation of family businesses. So in your family business, do you have an advisory board? Do you have what sort of governance structure do you have, especially given that family businesses tend to be multi-generational?
Hi everyone, my name is Alan Victor Senkungu. I'm into cybersecurity. My question is a personal one. In a life as busy as yours, what are those daily habits that you have? Ensure that you're always switched on to be able to execute at that level.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Ibanda. I would like to ask, as an entrepreneur, how do you recognize and accept that you are the problem in the business? As the head of the business, how do you come to terms that the business is not growing because of you? And how do you mitigate that? How do you come to terms with that?
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Ekeset. My question is the opposite of his. How do you say you're in a business relationship with someone, it's your partner, or Tony is your partner, and you just feel like Tony is a problem, but you also know that Tony won't budge? How do you get to a point where you feel like you're either wasting your time to innovate in the business because the other person won't evolve? How do you handle those differences?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nachanzo Olivia. I'm one of the directors of Jeans Club Uganda Limited. We do jeans, menswear, but we started with jeans, and we got the name from the jeans that we sold at first that made us who we are. So we do men's clothing, and we are importers from Asia. We have done it for some time, but we still have issues. A lot of issues as if we are starters. The directors, my husband has the biggest shares, then me, then the children. Now, we have been in for like 15 years. We do not have like, we have issues with systems. We have issues with human resource acquisition and management and retention. We have issues with customer follow-ups. We have issues with, for example, if we have to travel together, we have to leave people around. Somehow, somewhere, you know there are issues. When you're around, the issue is like combed. Now, there's a time when you have maybe like you have an employee who has been on for some time. You give them the time, the delegation, we give them the powers. Then a time comes when a person who has been around for some time feels like can own, maybe can own on your behalf, then reaches a time when that person is even reaching an extent of owning the customers. I don't know whether people are familiar with that. Owning the customers to an extent that so and so will not buy unless I call him or I remind, because we do it at both wholesale and retail levels. So we first call the wholesalers because we have people who buy from us and sell in the suburbs of Kampala and even outside Kampala. So you reach an extent where someone is like owning the clients. So and so will not buy because so and so has not called, has not followed up. Then there are those clients who will not buy if Olivia has not called me because I'm a friend to Olivia, or I'm only buying from the manager or the CEO, or is it? We have those issues. Please, Mr. Sekalala, can you help on how we can go about that? And now, the boys are young, they're not even aware that they are shareholders in the business. How do we help them understand, love the business, and also pick the interest into this? Because at the moment, they all have different interests. But they know at least mommy and daddy operate a shop, and that is where they get the money. And they all think maybe they have to run shops to get money. I don't know whether it is right or wrong. Are we doing it too early? Or thank you so much.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mariam. I'm a civil engineer, and I run a construction company. My question is supplementary to what I think she's called Barbara, what she asked. As a privately owned business, do you have advisory boards? And if you do, how do you choose the people who sit on those boards? And maybe the second question is also similar to what Daniel asked. How do you choose your employees? But also, what kind of leadership style do you have? Because I tend to have a challenge that I'm very empathetic. So how do you prevent yourself from getting taken for granted, yes, by the employees? And we know that as a leader, you have to establish a certain relationship with your employees. But where do you draw the line? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. Here. So I'm called Sharon Anena. It is very personal. I have a staff. I want to make it kind of international, but my problem is the bureaucratic process of it, trying to register it, trying to get the right papers to continue, and I don't know the process or how to navigate through that. Do you mind getting some light on that?
Thank you. So, Aga, I think we can take those questions.
Okay. I have a question there was a first question from Stella. I just wanted to get a clarification that the family business makes. Stella, is Stella? What was the question was about? Or what do you give the kids to be interested? Okay, all right. Sorry, I scribbled it and I lost what I had scribbled myself. How do you get the kids to be interested? Again, there is no single answer to how to get the kids to be interested, but there are basic things that have been done over time that you need to work with. The first one is, it's important that the business is not a source of conflict for the children as they grow up. So if the children grow up seeing you shouting, hating their business, you're screaming your head off, the business is not a source of joy to you, the founder. It is impossible for them to love the same business. They see it as something that has been a source of pain for them, or as a pain for their parents, who they love, because they love you by default. If a business is something now that also takes away from them, so basically you miss their play because you are at your business, you don't go to soccer practice because you are at the business, then also the business could grow up with the connotation that the business took away their parents from them, from loving them and giving them time. This is also very common. And based on that, they tend to almost subconsciously reject. And they say, I want to go to Samoa. I want to get the benefits of the business, or if anything happens, I just want to sell the business, because it is not a source of joy. A business has to be a source of pleasure, and the children need to, first of all, appreciate it, one, as a source of income, and two, as something that is good and positive and adds to their life, and it is something that is, it has to be on the positive side of the scale. Once you start off on that side of the scale, you're ahead. But it never is a guarantee. If somebody wants to go off and become a nun or a father or a priest, there's nothing that you're going to do about it. They're not going to be interested. That's what they want to be, because that's what the person wants to be. And it's not that being a nun or a priest is a bad thing. It's just they want to be that, and that's different. So that might not be favorable if you have a business and you have one child and they want to go off to become a nun. So that might be a problem. So it's so important that the business is not negative. That's the best way to start. The rest of the things are obvious. They need to work in the business. They need to have experience with the business. They need to touch and feel the business and understand the benefits of the business. So those are the things that they also have to be inculcated. As they grow up, they are touching and feeling. They are there with the business. They see what happens. They know what's going on. And then all of a sudden it becomes, why are you doing this? Why are you doing the other? And then they're going off to do a few things for the business. So that takes a bit of time, and that is not something that you build in a day. It is something that you need to think of as a long-term recruitment. So you need to think about it as, HR long. So think about it now, I need to think about it. It is something that will come with time. Brenda, the farmer. Burnout. Do you get burnout? Yes, I think everybody gets burnt out, but over time, one of the things you don't want is you only want to get enough burnout so that you can wake up the next morning and go to work. Meaning that you have to max out, you have to make sure that the burnout is only at the end of the day, and you're burnt out and you sit in front of the TV maybe for 30 minutes and you go to sleep, and in the morning you can wake up. You're not allowed to get the burnout, the kind of burnout where you have to stay in your house for days, no? Not allowed to do that if you're going to own a business. Do you get burnout? There are certain things that you do to avoid burnout. One of the things that is most important that I've learned over the years, Tony has told you, is exercise. So exercise, eat well, stop drinking sodas, stop drinking sugar, stop drinking things, eating things that you don't need to eat. Stop eating fried food.
Dr. Kasenine would be proud of you, huh?
If you eat well, feed your mind, and you have a good health yourself, then you become less susceptible to having that inevitable burnout. We all get stressed, but you have to have a strong coping mechanism. So very important. If you run, for instance, like I used to run, if you can sit and run if you can run for an hour straight, your mind becomes you have a coping mechanism. You know, as Muslims we fast. We fast for a full day. From morning, so you don't eat anything. You're hungry, but you get used to it. You learn that you can act. So you learn how to manage yourself. You learn how to be able to say, well, if I don't eat, I'm not going to die. So those are the coping mechanisms. So you got to build coping mechanisms, and these are many. Many people, everybody has a different coping mechanism. But avoid the burnout, the type of burnout, that burnout that where you see, and I see it a lot with young people, burnt out and have been missing for a week. Gone. They don't show up to work. We don't know where they are. They say maybe they've got malaria, COVID, whatever they want to say. But ultimately, they burnt out. You don't want to do that. Or you burn out, and then you decide to indulge and drink alcohol or decide to drink something else. You don't want that. Don't get to that. Don't allow yourself that. Manage yourself early. Early before you get there, manage yourself. Manage your health. Manage how you are. And these are things that will help you later on in life. Mr. Chiwika. When I'm investing, what do I look out for? I tend to look out for very, 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 very engaged entrepreneurs. People who love what they're doing, who have a passion, but who also understand that they're not going to do everything. There are people who love what they do, but they think they will do everything. So I'm very, very interested in the entrepreneur. So when I'm investing, I tend to try and understand. If the person is a hog and they're greedy and they want to do everything themselves, I'm going to leave them alone because later on they're going to be a problem. So I tend to want to invest in somebody who's willing to try and get other people on board. Build a team. That's very important for me. Even more important than the idea. I then pick up on the idea. The idea is important because if you've got a dud of an idea, then it doesn't even matter. But sometimes you have a very good entrepreneur and a good team builder who's able to pivot. Even when they have an idea which is half good, they're able to find some way of moving it on to the next level. A lot of the businesses that I started that's not really what we started out to do. We started out to do something different, but then when we got into the market, we changed it. So it's about, do you have a team that are observant, that are cognitive enough to see their surroundings? That's most important. That's more important than that you have this super idea of how to use crypto. And you're alone. Doesn't matter. I run into a lot of entrepreneurs. The guy tells you, ask him, what are you doing? I did that. I did this. I did that. You hear too many eyes? That's the end of that conversation. I'll not invest in your business. You've got to be a team person. What skills do you need to survive in business? Many skills. But I think at the end of the day, you need to have people skills. You need to be able to, one, understand yourself. We spoke about that at length. Understand how you get to know that. You need to be able to interact with people. You need to be able to work with people. You need to be able to actually sit in a room of people and convince them that what you're doing is right. But what you're doing, it comes from the heart. It is not something that you're going to be, there's no fake it till you make it. That's out. So think about how the skills are mostly people skills. But then you also have to have the basic skills for business. There are some basic skills. Is it, if you're a finance person, is it accounting? Is it understanding what you're doing? Is it understanding those derivatives in the form that they are? So there are different skills. I have friends who are financial advisors, and you speak to them, and they know finance like the back of their hand. They will tell you, this is good, this is good, this is the other. They don't need to be, they have the basics to be able to set up a firm and be able to advise on financial matters. So it's different. I have friends who are lawyers, and one person is not able to set up a good team because they hog everything on their own. And another guy is very good. They build a team of people, and they have admirable law firms. So teamwork is I think is very, very important. I think it is fairly up there with empathy, with self-awareness, and all these other things, and the training and the skills that you have as basic. Jita asked, how do you sustainably grow, and how do you do financing? This is a good question also. Over a long period of time, one of the things we've done is we've done a lot of joint ventures. We've worked together with people who have capital. We've opened up to having a little bit less ownership and a little bit more and a little bit bigger business. So to start Yugachi, we had an investor who brought in the capital. So it is not all your money. You need to be willing to work with other people. So you need to have those skills also. Be able to acquire. You need to be able to work with others. Many a times I meet young people, 2 or 3 of them, doing the same business, and I ask them, why don't you guys get together? Why don't you merge your businesses so you have one business that is good? He's got people skills.
He's a salesman.
Thank you very much. So my point is, I think to Jita, it's very challenging getting financing in this market. It's true. Finance is very tricky. It is very hard. Very few banks want to finance agriculture or want to finance long-term business. Most of the banks want to finance the lady there that sells the jeans in the shop because it's quick. It's a quick turnaround. So that's the nature. That is a structure, and that is structural, and it comes from the nature of funds that the banks have. I didn't understand this until a few years ago. I served on a board. I did retire eventually, Tony. So I no longer serve. I no longer chair. I did my term and I finished. But it is largely because all the people who put money in the bank or who save money in the bank have what they call demand deposits. Very people are putting money in the bank long term. So the nature of the funds in the bank are also very short term. So the banks can only lend it out. They can't really give you money 10 years when the people who deposited the money want to take it out on the 15th of the month. So nobody's putting in long term. So it is also not really... It's not really of their own making. It is also a structural problem. So we also have to appreciate, some of the challenges also that our institutions have. The dinner table, Insta, and advice to the young about instant gratification versus being patient and living in a world where things all don't work in your own way. This is not easy, but young people just need to get out there and start working. You know, whatever it is, you just need to get out there and just get out there and get some work. And not hope that you're going to be an influencer. That's enough. Get out there, get a job. And now, while you're at your job, if you can be an influencer in the evening, I have no problem. But get out there and do some old-fashioned work. when you go out there and do some old-fashioned work, what happens is at the end of the month, you earn a salary and you look at it and then you spend it. Sometimes you spend it quickly, sometimes you spend it slowly, but you realize how hard it is to earn money. And yes, they are YouTube billionaires. We hear about them, you see them. Supposedly this guy's got a channel with I don't know how many millions of people. But that person most likely is not you. I don't know, that person is there, but it's not you. So I don't know. I think the advice that I have is go out there, get a job, do something. Go through the trouble of trying to get something done, and then slowly you realize, all of a sudden, you suddenly realize that all of a sudden, how much effort does it take to earn a paycheck? And I think for me, that'll be my start, but there are many other things I think that could happen. How do you know if the business has, and the owner is now the problem? This is not uncommon, by the way, and actually this is a very common problem. A lot more common than you would imagine. That all of a sudden the owner of the business is a problem, and this happens a lot in lifestyle businesses, where the owner keeps on taking money from the business. It's a tough one because a lot of businesses will not make it past this problem. To be honest, it is something that you have to face because he's the owner. They are the owner, and how do they? But if you can build a self-awareness as yourself, and I see it sometimes where a businessman says, it is time for me to step aside. And that is a lot of wisdom. That is a lot, that takes a lot. And when that happens, normally that is a good step and a step in the right direction if they set it up properly. Changing partners is also hard and not easy, but I suggest, and I make a quick suggestion because I've done this very many times. Partners. When you're starting out with a partner, talk about the full range of things. Set them out in writing. We're going to get to a point in time where we will not get along. What do we do? The problem is that when you get a partner, you treat them like a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So you only think about the good things. You only talk about, we love each other. We're going to do so many things. We have this business. It's romanticized. You also have to deal with the issues around what happens when things go south. So if you deal with that early, then it is easier later when things go bad. But if maybe perhaps you are like every other Joe and you never dealt with, you don't have an agreement, one of the best things to do is you can do it later on. You can have an agreement. One of the other things that you can do is, over the years, one of the problems I had when I was in the disco business was I was always paying out my shareholders. So it was a drain on resources. When you get to a point where you're a little bit successful, a shareholder says, me, I no longer want this business. I want to sell out. I want to sell my shares. So you have to always go around and have mechanisms. So you have to have mechanisms of buying out your other partners. And the best way is to make these things transparent from the beginning. How much do you pay your partner to get out of the business? It should be clear that I can pay you without actually killing the business. So that's important. Very important that you bear that in mind. But there's a lot of mechanisms out there, and these things are now no longer, it's not rocket science and it's not secrets. You can actually, speaking to a good lawyer or speaking to somebody, these mechanisms are out there and they're very easy. How do you split up with a partner? And it happens. Partnerships split up. So, it's a normal thing. Just seek advice fairly early on. And also, as much as you're willing, and I implore the people in this room, as much as you're keen to have him get out, you should also be willing to get out yourself and leave him there. If that's the case, then, you will be able to work on a fairly equitable exit for either one of you. Tony is also my son. No, before that, somebody asked, why do some businesses, somebody asked some businesses, why do some businesses close structure? I think there was a question around businesses surviving and closing. The businesses that you start, and some of the businesses surviving, some of them not surviving. Very much it's around objective. You have to set very clear objectives in the beginning of the businesses that you're starting. What do you expect them to be in 1 year? What do you expect it to be in 5 years? What do you expect it to be in 10 years? They have to be very clear milestones. Sometimes a business is successful, but not in the way that you wanted it to be. So you also have to have that in mind. You also have to bear that your business might just not achieve the objectives that you set it out to do. So have clear objectives. Sometimes people drag businesses on for a long time. They keep on trying. And, all of a sudden they're worn out and, you wear out your shoes, you wear out your clothes, trying to get this business to go. It's also important to be able to pull the plug, start again, maybe do something different, change the way you're working. It's important. Some of the businesses that we started, it was the times. Some of the business was that the people that stayed owning the businesses, you asked about Silk, for instance, it was a little bit around the time, the way the businesses are, the fact that businesses moved into the suburbs. There were so many bars that people could go to and they were no longer willing to pay. The structure of businesses changed. And some of the businesses changed. It's a matter of time. The business has been around 15 years, 20 years. Sometimes the market shifts from you. It might call for you to also shift with the market. That's where we were talking about strategy earlier. Have you shifted with the market? Have you kept up with what the business is supposed to do? But sometimes a business is so fixed. Its location is who it is. It is where it is. Somebody would ask you a genuine question, can you move the Serena from where it is? That's where it is. That's where it is. But, those are the other things that you need to think about as on your entrepreneurial journey. Structure. What is structure? And what is important in a structure? Structure is something that you build over time. And structure, you don't wake up in the morning and you have an HR, you have a manager, a finance, no. Sometimes you start out a small business and you actually outsource your accountant. You outsource your finance function. Sometimes you outsource HR. Sometimes you will outsource, some other cleaning function, for instance. So you're not going to have a full structure from the beginning. But what is important is to know that as you grow the business or as time moves on, there are certain roles, especially the things that maybe you as the sole entrepreneur or you as the founder have been doing, and as you get to time, you delegate, especially as resources allow. The most important thing is resources allowing. But sometimes you need to also be entrepreneurial even in setting up a structure. Sometimes you have to be aggressive. Sometimes you have to say, okay, I want to have a good sales team. That's what's going to make me grow. Sometimes it's I want to have a good talent pool. If you want to have a good talent pool, you need to invest in that from the beginning and put efforts in that. So sometimes people will say, I'll have a good talent pool. And what that goes with a good talent pool, you need to have some basic HR. You need to be able to manage their HR issues. What are their issues? Are their records right? Is everything right? Do they take their leave? Are they being managed properly? Talent is like that. Talent is like that. I had those struggles when I was with the radio. You have talent, you have DJs. These guys have egos the size of, danger to low-flying aircraft. But, you get used to it. And you have to manage them, but you also have to make sure that you build, a fairly resilient business. Do we have an advisory board? Yes, we have a board. We've had a board because we've always had investors. We always have a board. We're fortunate that way that's how the business was set up. It was set up amongst investors. We've also had financial institutions investing in the business. So EADB has been on our board. UDB have had both seats. We've always had, because of that in our mind, we always have a running board, and the board is quite active and it does decide on policy. We struggle maybe with sometimes being quick enough to be able to, and also we might not have the sort of levels of having very, very big information packs. But we try our best to make sure that the board is informed. They get monthly reports, quarterly reports. They're quite informed about what's happening in the board, and we have regular meetings. So, and normally, if at least they know what we call that we call them the top line issues. What are the top line issues in the business are fairly well known to our board. Alan asked about daily habits. We've talked about this a few times. Exercise, eating. Those are your daily. That's your wall. That's your reference. You need to make sure that make sure that if you have family or spouse or wife, you need to make sure that you build good relations with your better halves or with your parents if you live with your parents. You need to have good, peaceful domestic situations. Let me call it that. That's your comfort zone. So you need to build a good comfort zone. You need to be able, and it almost has to be intentional. You need to work at it. This is not something that you get by luck. You don't fluke it. So you need to make sure that I have friends who don't want to go home. And so you meet the guy and he's telling you, is there something else? Can we go hang out here? And you're like, why don't you want to go home? Man, I want to wait until madam is sleeping. So if you get into that kind of situation, you're not doing very well. So work towards making sure that if you're tired and you want to get some rest, you can go home. Develop your times. Have a fairly good clock. And for me, working in radio is very good, has been very good for me because I think about a clock a lot. Radio works on a clock. So I think about a clock. I know after 15 minutes is a radio break. After this is this. After this. I work like that. So I think I don't sit and do work and sit there. I will not sit in a meeting that goes on for more than 2 hours. There's no radio show lasts more than 2 hours. Once the meeting gets to more than that, I say enough. So those are good, those are decent habits. They're not good habits, but they're decent habits to have. Develop a clock that you say stop, I take a break, I do this. Have a time for your exercise, a time for yourself, time for your spirituality, a time for the people that you love and care about. Also, a time that you're away from it all. That will help you. That will help you a lot as a habit. Okay, yes, there was a question about the owner and the partner being a problem. When is the owner a problem? We've talked about that a little bit. How do you know? It's very hard to know because you're nearly the beginning and the end of a business. So at the end of the day, my litmus test is always simple. If I can leave the business and go away for the weekend and everything is still okay on Monday, that's a good test. Then I do a week, then I do 2 weeks, then I do a month. That's a good test. If you come back and things are running better than you left them, then you need to start to take the hint that you are a problem. Partners, we talked about partners a little bit. We touched on that. Olivia asked about the systems. But Olivia, I would like to congratulate you. 15 years in business is not little. You need to appreciate that you've done very well. So 15 years and you're able to stand up and speak about your business is not small. You need to congratulate yourself, then ask yourself, how do you move from 15 to 30 to 45? So 15 years is half of Yuga Chick, we're 30. So it is not small. So I think you should delight in this. So that said, you mentioned that you had some problems. All businesses have a problem. Corporate businesses have problems. Even banks have problems. I've been involved in that sort of situation. The best thing to do is look around and you'll find a consultant. You might actually have somebody already, but you might get somebody who you both trust, you and your husband, somebody who you trust. There's a couple of them, there are good ones around. Even Ugandans, very good. Well, yeah, okay, him, but I'm saying there are consultants who can come and objectively dissect your business. And you'll be very happy. They'll come through, they'll speak to you, and they will then recommend you the people who should help you in the various areas. HR is one area. There might be one person who can help you in that area. Get in the habit of getting outside help. It doesn't hurt. It's been tough. COVID has been tough. Sales are down, business is down, tough, dollar, what? There's many things. But you need to get to a point and say, okay, we've had enough of this problem. Let's get some outside help. Start with one problem and then build on from there. You mentioned hijack. I think that's a very common thing. Just encourage these star employees of yours who want to hold on to things to take leave. They don't want, but they have to go and leave. No, they'll cry. It's okay, but make them go and leave. It is a very serious matter. I will teach you something that I learned when I was in the financial sector. In banking, if people don't go and leave, the business is penalized for the money of untaken leave. When you see the sorts of money that you can be penalized, you realize that it is considered a liability on your balance sheet. Once you learn about that liability and start to internalize it, you will want to take it off your balance sheet. Get them to go and leave. And once they go and leave and they leave, and you don't call them, sooner or later, either there is something wrong with the product, but if that's not the case, sooner or later you will understand where the holes are. They might be good people. And I'm not saying fire people, no. I'm saying, you leave. You'll find that person who's hijacking your business hasn't gone on leave in 4 years. And you just need to interrogate and say, take your leave. And they will consider that they've been fired, but you say, no, this is your leave. You're not allowed to carry it forward anymore. From the year 2023, no leave will be carried forward. Take leave. And consultant. Don't be afraid of them. Get used to them. Get used to paying them some money. Agree with them from the beginning. Negotiate your rates. And a consultant will help you. There are many business consultants, and they're good. I recommend that you start to walk down that road if you think your children, you want them to get involved in that business. Because the problem is that your children will not want to get involved in a stressful business. They will not want to get involved in a business which they see is acrimonious in any way. They want to get involved in a successful business. So that's it. That's what you have to be aiming at. So if one, make it your 2023, I'm going to make sure that I turn this thing around. I get to know where the problems are, I solve them. The people who are people problems, put them aside, make sure that you get them to go away from the business for a while. Yourselves, you have to live life, but you have to figure out, of the two of you, who's going to be the main person to remain in the business. That's also something that you also have to consider with time. So, and also you have to consider, what if your children don't want the business at all? That's also something that's bitter, but it's something that you also have to think about. Marian, the civil engineer, do you have advisory boards? Yes, we have advisory boards for all our businesses. Leadership style. Your leadership style is your leadership style. Right now, I would be lying to you to tell you that I can change your leadership style or he can change your leadership style. You just have to be aware of what your leadership is, what type of person you are. Then you need to build a team around you that is complementary. If you need people who are a little bit more tough on the line, maybe that's where you need to be looking. Maybe that's what your HR should be doing. Maybe that's what your partner should be doing. Maybe that's what, somebody somewhere should be doing. And sometimes you might realize that you've grown, you have this business, but you don't have the skills. Where are you going to get the skills? You can't hire. This was a common problem for me in the late 90s, early 2000s. People didn't want to work for entrepreneur businesses. They wanted to work for corporates. They wanted to go work for Pepsi. The people would say, no, I'm not going to work for you. You're an individual. Now it's easier, but maybe it's perhaps also because of the track record. But back then, people didn't want to work for individuals. So you need to figure out if it is that you have a challenge. One of the things that you need to think about is there a possibility for you to do a joint venture on a project with somebody who has good skills that you can work with? A possibility. Might not be realistic, but if there is a project which is big and you want to work with a group of people, you might actually get a chance to actually understand who has skill, who has talent, who is good at what. Maybe that person can become, maybe you can build a bigger thing than having your own individual thing. So my recommendation is learn who you are, work with a coach to understand who you are. Sometimes because you studied civil engineering, you take it that, I got my degree, I don't need to learn more. Take on a coach for leadership, a leadership coach. There are many of them. Understand who you are, know who you are and what you want to do, what you're strong at. Know what's not your strong point, and then build for that. Balance for that. So know what you're good at. Some people are very good technically. I hope that I have answered maybe a few of your questions.
Absolutely.
I know that I've answered some.
Wow.
I beg.
Wow. Guys,
thank you for listening.
Thank you, Aga. Wow. 2 hours of great conversation. Aga, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Aga, thank you so much. Before we proceed, Aga, and we're just going to close in a bit. I know 2 hours and, you say 2 hours and what? What happens after 2 hours? You alas, the program is ended. Aga, before the program ends, this is not or would never have been possible without a great team. So allow me to introduce the team to you, and I want them to come up here so we can see them and see their faces. I will introduce Samuel. Samuel is the guy who spoke this morning. You remember the guy who said when he came to advise, and then all of a sudden, Samuel, come and join us. Then we have Linda Kamasaka. Linda is Linda is the person who drives us crazy. All of this is because of Linda. She's the one who keeps our schedule. She's the one who makes this happen. Organization. Without her, lots of things are not possible. We have Joram. Joram, if you can come up. Joram actually also hosted a very amazing event last week, Afrozilla, the first one of its kind. We supported him. It's all about creatives. Very much into the creative space. He's a creative, among many things, a fashionista, among other things, a gym instructor, among other things, a photographer, among other things, many things. And then we have David Kanje. David Kanje is the guy who puts our content together. If you recall the 360 Mentor, when we were hosting it with Gabushenga, he was the guy who began the transcribing and does it for us. Guys, come up here, please. Come up here. We do have Emmanuel. Emmanuel isn't here with us. He is stuck in Arusha with Emi Otim. And like I said, my jet just arrived, but I don't think it can make it in time back to Arusha and back. So they are joining us live right now as I speak. But also, I just wanted to say one thing. Wemby. Wemby is a very interesting personality. This guy wrote our profiles, and we had to use a Tharusaurus. It's called a Tharusaurus. Thasaurus. Yeah, that one. We had to use it to understand what he had written about us. He is the guy who really, really has put a lot of this content together. And support on the website and everything. These are the guys who have made it possible. These are the guys who research for us. These are the guys who, do the research for us, put content together, tell us what is appropriate, what jokes are not. So when you expect us to make jokes and we are not making jokes and we are serious, these are the people who make it happen. So guys, I'm just going to allow you to stay here because Aga, we're going to close right now and have a networking session. We have some drinks and food at the back. I'm just going to allow Emi Otim, our co-founder, to kind of pass on the vote of thanks. Emi, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. So you haven't missed. I was going to say welcome to the 5 a.m. club, but it's clearly coming to 9 o'clock. So Emi, your vote of thanks. Please proceed.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Aga Sekalala. We are so inspired to have you on the Ubuntu Talks. And I just wanted to try this out with the audience. I wanted to say, for those who think that Sekalala should come back for part 2 in 2023, say hi. Hi. Mr. Aga Sekalala, we are pulling you back in 2023, which is our year of elevation. So we are hoping you can create some more time to come back and be with us. We are very inspired by your words. And I just wanted to say one thing to the audience. One thing to the audience. The people that follow you and look up to you do not listen to you. They imitate you. They look at what you do. If you come to work early, they will follow exactly that and come early. If you dress smart, they will dress smart. If you read, they will read. So the people that follow you imitate you. They don't listen to you. From the Ubuntu team, I want to say we are so inspired. We are so honored to have you all at this new space. I would like to thank in a special way the great Indian Dabba. And I'm encouraging our people, please go on Twitter and follow the Indian Dabba. They gave us a new space. We are so honored to be in that new space. I want to thank Smart 24. I'm not around, but I'm following this on YouTube. Very honored that you came through and put us online. And I'm encouraging all of us, when we open again on 9th of January, join the 5 a.m. club. Sekalala is part of the 5 a.m. He just doesn't listen. But by 5 a.m. he's up. So guys, join this. Join this. We are very honored. Thank you very much. Thank you, the team. Thank you, Tony, for inspiring the team to be part of this process. I want to thank you, Samuel, Linda, Joram, Kanje, and Wemby. We are very honored to be with you and to work with you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best tonight. Good night, and enjoy the networking.
Thank you very much, Amy. And like Amy always says, thank you so much. And like Amy always says, wake up, dress up, show up. Thank you so much, guys. Networking time.
Smart 24.